Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
The National Weather Service.
Hey everyone, thanks again for joining us for another live edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, we have a few illuminated zones here across the state. Still have the winter storm warning out for the Seward Peninsula here in the red shaded areas. Reports today of anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snow having fallen from that area from Moose Pass northward. Strong winds blowing it, drifting it around, some whiteout conditions there along the Seward Highway. And that expected to continue until about 10 p.m. this evening when the winds become a little less windy and it becomes a little less snowy. Of course, down in toward Resurrection Bay and Seward, that was falling as a mixture of rain or snow. Winter weather advisory or snow advisory or winter weather advisory due to snow. Up there in the Susitna Valley, west of the Parks Highway, look for another 2 to 4 or 5 inches of snow this evening, and then tapering off lighter amounts to the east and south. And then the area up here, those are wind advisories along the Alaska Range. Just about the entire stretch of the range there covered in that area with wind gusts expected tonight and through tomorrow, through Tuesday, to be about 60 miles an hour through the passes there. And then back out here to the west, these are winter weather advisories here for gusty winds picking up 15 to 30 miles an hour, higher gusts, some snow. So areas will see some blowing snow. And then out here, the Bering Strait coast, actually from St. Lawrence Island up to the Tin City, Wales area, and then back to the towards Shishmaref and up into the northwest there. Those are for wind chill advisories. Through tomorrow, looking for wind chills at about minus 50 tonight through these areas, and then up to about minus 40 throughout the day tomorrow. And then right through here, a winter weather advisory for snow, some of which will be blowing and drifting around, reducing visibilities. And that's as this frontal system pushes northward there. So the southern slopes of the Brooks Range there on the south side, probably picking up a period of snow and gusty winds. And then that front will lift right on to the north during the day tomorrow. There were some pretty brisk winds around the state today. Notably, Portage Center had gusts of 78 miles an hour earlier in the afternoon. Middleton Island kicking up to 65 knots, which equals about 75 miles an hour on the gusts. St. George Island northerlies up to 60 miles an hour. And that just driving that cold air southward through the Bering Sea. Temperatures down into the mid-teens this afternoon as the ice edge starts to show up on the horizon up there. Tooksuk Bay there just east on the coast, east of Nunivak Island, seeing gusts of 55 miles an hour this afternoon as well. For the satellite, yesterday, you'll see how the things evolved, just nothing but sunshine and high pressure over the interior. Had some batch of clouds here and some showers moving into the southeast coast, which continued to linger, the showers, even into this morning. An area of clouds, snow, and gusty winds out here over the Bering Sea. And then here's the system, the cloud shield associated with the front that overnight last night and today pushed a front up across Kodiak Island. They had minimal gales here come across with that front, and about maybe as much as a half an inch of rain falling across the island, or rain and snow. And as that continued throughout the day today, you can see right up into south central Alaska. Of course, this portion of the front coming up to the coast brought those storm force winds right up to the North Gulf Coast and gale force winds into Prince William Sound, and then diminishing as you come to the west here. And not too much on the winds, a little brisk at times with the front, but dropping off considerably, and then back around to the north winds right through here. Again, those strong winds out over the Pribilofs, coming down across the eastern Aleutians, keeping the cold air into that area, but the snow tapered off at Unalaska, and just some snow showers out toward Adak and Atka. Still cold up there in the North Slope. Temperatures this afternoon, that's not clouds up there, that's just the cold surface temperatures. They're still under 30 degrees below zero in some areas in the mid-afternoon hours. Little better conditions there, a little more sunshine. Then you can see the breaks the southeast coast finally got there after the lingering isolated showers finally became less significant, and the breaks became a little more significant, but already this cloud shield has spread back across the area there, and there's been a dramatic increase in the winds up in this area as well. Again, picking up quite a bit in the rain right off the coast. As you can see, starting out not bad overnight and early this morning here, but already the clouds, as I mentioned, have pushed back in, and the front coming up now into across the Kenai Peninsula this morning at 10 a.m. It was roughly in about this position here. Again, this area of the gradient pushing northward, kicking those winds up across the North Gulf Coast there and into Prince William Sound. And then this area back through here to the northwest and west of the front, seeing the cold air and gusty winds right down into the eastern Aleutians there, but not so much out over the central and western Aleutians. Actually becoming pretty light out here, but very cold air has pierced all the way down south of the Aleutians and actually off the chart here. And for tonight, we're going to see a continuation of that light wind pattern out in that area. There's a next storm that'll be mostly heading eastward, and then actually will become take a turn to the northeast and pass similar to this one, where tonight the low center looks like it should move up right near Kodiak Island. The front now coming inland and becoming weakened and a little less significant. One band of moisture shifting up to the Brooks Range there for those winter weather advisories, and then back to the west-southwest. And should become a little less windy, but the winds won't end altogether. The gradient now with the main low center itself will keep it pretty brisk, probably some gale force winds along the western Gulf Coast. Rain and snow along the coastline, areas of snow, mostly on the upslope mountainous terrain zones, but nothing getting into the Tanana Valley. Rain heavy at times with gusty southeast winds, maybe as high as 40 to 60 miles an hour, even possibly gusts 65 miles an hour up along the north coast till that front pushes through, which should be later tonight. And then tomorrow still have the boundary right through here, and a couple of waves will develop and move northward, and that's going to keep this portion from really pushing out of the area. This one coming up tomorrow. It doesn't look as fierce as it did yesterday, so probably small craft advisories with some rain or continuous rain here along the central and southern areas, breaking out, becoming a little more showery up along the North Gulf Coast, but periods of snow, again, mostly across Prince William Sound and the southern areas, and then quite an area of light snow back here out over the southwest interior, sweeping down and across the Bering Sea side of the peninsula and up along this front, which is, you can see, quite weak now up through the northern interior, just some leftover moisture bringing some flurries or light snow up along the eastern coastline there. Back to the west, still the wind chill advisories, as I mentioned, will continue through tomorrow with that dry cold air mass continuing to plunge southward, but you can see the gradient really slackening off here over the Bering Sea, especially to the south. So winds are going to become a lot less even along the southwest coast here, and probably dropping down to that 10 to 15 knot range along the Alaska Peninsula. This system sliding eastward, the cold air keeping it on a track to the east, at least for now, so even the precipitation associated with that probably will stay to the south of Adak and Atka. Then we'll see on Wednesday, the whole thing turns the corner here and starts tracking northeastward. So Tuesday night, the wind and rain come back again and increase across Kodiak Island, and probably tomorrow evening here over the Alaska Peninsula. On Wednesday, a lot windier conditions here from Bristol Bay, possibly gale force, definitely small craft advisory winds for the Bristol Bay area, and gale force winds down across the western Alaska Peninsula with snow, possibly blowing snow, and then the milder air coming up, more heavy rain poised to move into the Kenai Peninsula from Kodiak Island, and a little bit of a mix here out in advance of that. And then some lingering light stuff here with this trough that really is mostly seen in the upper levels. It'll extend, which is exiting the southeast coast, mostly snow showers here over the Wrangell Mountains, and then back up into the northwest with that weak low. Looks kind of cloudy and snowy through the day on Wednesday, but could be some pretty good sunshine here down to the south. North slope may break out in the Arctic coast. Winds will stay light with just some patchy areas of fog and possibly flurries, especially on the west side like we saw today, and that area is just kind of sliding down into the strait and then dissipating as it gets into the northern Bering Sea. Temperatures this afternoon in the 40s across the Panhandle, 43 at Juneau, same thing there at Port Alexander and down at Klawock, 37 at Yakutat and over at Cordova. Again, Cordova seeing winds gusting upwards of 50 miles an hour this afternoon out of the east with some wet snow falling, and the winds on the increase at Yakutat. Mid-20s in Anchorage, 19 Talkeetna, but down where the more wind and milder conditions broke through, 37 at Homer, near 40 across Kodiak, into the lower to mid-40s on the lee side of the Aleutian Range there of the peninsula, but 23 at King Salmon. Teens to single numbers back out over the southwest interior. And then quite a range here where the winds are kicking up, seeing temperatures push up to 20 in the Tanana Valley. Otherwise, Fairbanks had 8, Tanana -1. Battle's 4 below, 24 below, still pretty chilly up there in the Brooks Range, and areas to the north. Again, over at Nuiqsut, Dead Horse, both locations there staying under 30 below at least through 4 o'clock, and then not much warmer back here to the west. Still below zero across the northwest, but Nome pushed up to 4 degrees. 7 at Unalakleet, -3 at St. Michael, -6 out there with the strong winds at Gamble, and again single numbers here to well up to 10 there at Amonic. For the Aleutians, 28 at Unalaska, same thing at Adak and Atka, 30 degrees at Shimia. St. Paul, 14 degrees, and it looked like the ice edge was about just 80 miles up to the north. And for lows tonight, again, dropping down possibly as low as 40 below zero over the eastern north slope out towards Nuiqsut, Dead Horse. So well below zero in the north here, a little below zero through this zone, and then much milder, some cases up toward freezing here up into the North Gulf Coast. Definitely 30s and lower 40s for the Panhandle, chillier out to the west. And the highs look like this, staying below zero up along the Brooks Range northward, back out to the northwest areas here in the northern Seward Peninsula and down into St. Lawrence Island. High of just 14 tomorrow for St. Paul, 27 for Unalaska, so staying pretty chilly out in these areas. Upper 30s to lower 40s here over, oh gosh, just about the Tanana Valley and the windy areas there, all the way down to the North Gulf Coast in the 40s, lower to mid 40s for the Panhandle. And looking at flying weather, lots of IFR continuing here, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast into the northern Panhandle, and then otherwise as the front pushes through, marginal VFR. IFR through this area here, that's the upslope areas of the Alaska Range, another batch through here, and a lot of marginal stuff out over the Bering Sea and areas, but not too bad actually along the Aleutians. And then remnants of that moisture from the front coming up, IFR in the eastern Arctic coast. Passes Anaktuvik, look for VFR becoming IFR as the front approaches, then moves through quite rapidly, so becoming VFR late in the day. Same forecast for Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, those conditions will be on the eastern approaches of both passes, and that same forecast holds for Rainy as well, with VFR tending to be seen in the Kuskokwim Valley. Otherwise, for windy, IFR on the south side, better to the north. Isabel, maybe some marginal VFR through the pass, but VFR to the north entrance. Mentasta, VFR, just a chance, slight chance of some marginal stuff showing up on the southern entrance. Tanita, marginal VFR. Portage, IFR, definitely on the east side, maybe better on the west end. And Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels down still south of the Aleutians here, cutting up in toward the Barren Islands, right along the North Gulf Coast. Tomorrow morning, 2,000 to 4,000 feet here over the Panhandle. And with that, there'll be some icing, possibly moderate rime or mixed icing from 4,000 to 12,000 feet here, south central Alaska, all the way down the Panhandle, and lighter stuff out here to the west. Upper level wind flow chart shows a strong jet stream here right into the southeast coast, and that's going to hold that rain and windy area there through tomorrow, with the upper low now back here in the western areas, and that's got the cold air locked in over much of the Bering Sea and also over the western interior. For the 9,000 foot winds, south up to 50 knots, east of the center to the west. Northerlies coming down, diminishing, down pretty light there for the eastern Aleutians is 5 knots, 45 knots right over Yakutat. 9,000 foot winds look pretty similar. And for turbulence, moderate chop here, mechanical, right down into the North Gulf Coast, and then along the Alaska Peninsula, areas of back up through the Bering Strait. And after the break, I'll be back with this snappy looking picture of the sea ice in the Bering.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor, and I'm filling in for Harry Keeling. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Directors for the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, and I also manage the Aviation Safety Program with the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. I'm also a commissioned officer in the U.S. Public Health Service. This evening, we are honored to have Ro Bailey on our show. Ro is the Deputy Director for Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration, and she is the Director of the Pan-Pacific UAS Test Range Complex. Ro has an impressive background in the Air Force, and she retired as a Brigadier General. She's an Alaskan by choice, and she mentioned to me that she is living the dream. Ro, welcome.
Thank you.
The Alaska Center for Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration is a research center at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. You're doing some research there, testing for small unmanned aircraft systems, or UAS. Can you tell me a bit about the program and what's the goal of the program?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The goal of the Alaska Center is to increase the number of applications for small unmanned aircraft systems, to separate them from what most people think of when they talk about drones, and we don't use that word, drones, because it gets people thinking about military, and the beneficial uses for unmanned aircraft systems in the civilian world is significant. So we're trying to do that. We're also trying to provide operational support to scientists whose data requirements in many cases put them or their pilots in very dangerous situations. You can put an unmanned aircraft system into those arenas without risking human life, and so it's much safer. And then also where the data collection is tedious or it's in dangerous situations like flying over a volcano, where the worst that happens is you might lose a piece of equipment, but you're not going to harm someone's life. So we're expanding all of those things, and then also working to find the ways to better integrate these small unmanned aircraft systems into the national airspace system so they can be used more broadly for those sorts of purposes.
It sounds like there are some great safety implications for what you're doing. Can you tell me what your funding sources are? Who pays for all of this testing and research?
Well, most of the work that we do for scientists and for civil authorities like Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management is funded by grants that are provided to us. It may be from federal agencies like National Science Foundation or NOAA, or it may be from a local agency like Department of Transportation Aviation, or it could be an association like Northern Fisheries Association, who were interested in identifying whether there really was a shortage of stellar sea lions out in the Aleutians, or in fact maybe that the feds hadn't been able to collect as good data as they would hope.
So you're doing a lot to monitor and hopefully improve some of the wildlife in Alaska and around Alaska.
We are. We can get to places where the wildlife are, but where flying a small manned aircraft would be pretty risky business. So the Aleutians, for example, the weather conditions tend to be much more on the atrocious side than on the lovely day for flying kind of side. And furthermore, with a small system, we can launch from a boat. So we went out on one of the deadliest catch boats, flew a couple of our systems off the boat, and were able to do 39 missions in conditions where manned aircraft wouldn't have taken off. But we could fly into a sucker hole and get back on board before the weather deteriorated, and were able to collect an enormous amount of data monitoring those sea lions. Similarly, we can locate polar bears without disturbing them. We find when we're looking at these animals, they don't know we're there. With a manned helicopter, they're looking up and diving over the side into the water. With our system, they're just hanging out, doing whatever it is they do.
So if the wildlife can't see you and you're undetected by them, it sounds like pilots who are flying in Alaska really need to pay attention and look out for the UAS.
They do, but I should say that because we know we're the newest guy on the block, we take it as our job, and the FAA actually tells us it's our job to look out for everyone else. And so one of the big challenges to integrating small unmanned aircraft systems into the National Airspace System is the need to figure out a way to reliably and effectively detect and avoid other aircraft all the time. And so that will be one of the things we'll be testing in the future under our test site designation.
Great. This is really interesting information, Ro, and I really appreciate you being here. Ladies and gentlemen, please tune in to our next show, and we're going to talk to Ro a little bit more and hear about what they're testing. This is a great reminder to see and avoid, as every pilot needs to take responsibility for seeing other aircraft. So always keep an eye out of the aircraft while you're flying. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Fly safely.
Welcome back. Well, this is yesterday's satellite image of the Bering Sea ice. You can see it quite clearly right through here, the outer edge of the heavier concentration, probably 50% or greater. And then you have some concentrations about 1 to 3/10 extend a little south of that area, like right through here. And then these are the clouds, and you can see as the cold air comes off and passes out over the water, picks up the clouds out in this area. That's St. Paul Island right there, and it looked like this afternoon this had pretty much made a pretty good stride to the south and southwest. It looked like it was inside of 60 north, I believe that is. Kind of hard to read these latitudes, but if that's the case, then it's actually less than 60 nautical miles to the northeast of Northeast Point on St. Paul Island. And for the forecast, less wind from what you'll see tonight when the front comes through, but then tending to pick back up, actually probably holding small craft advisory level winds all day tomorrow there, possibly increasing depending on how well developed the next wave is that comes up to the north, 10 to 20 knots from the southeast, coming down to 20 knots there for Lincoln Island Glacier Bay. And then those winds should kick up as high pressure builds down here to the south, and you have the lower pressure up over the Yukon ahead of that next storm system. They'll probably see some gale force southerlies in there, at least for a portion of the day on Wednesday, but lighter southwesterlies here, 10 to 15 knots. Again, high pressure building into this area, and 10 to 20 knots over the inside waters. For south central Alaska, Cook Inlet, for example, light variable winds tomorrow, 5 to 10 knots. Small craft advisories, Prince William Sound. Small craft advisories here for the North Gulf Coast, but lighter winds there for the Barren Islands in toward Kamishak Bay. Southwest, 20 to 25 across Kodiak Island. And then the next storm system bringing the gale force winds back into Kodiak Island there. Southeast 35, maybe higher there with northeasterlies at 35 knots for Solokoff Strait. Winds increasing to small craft advisory levels there for the Barren Islands, and then becoming south and starting to pick up in the afternoon here for the North Gulf Coast, but generally southerly in the 10 to 15 knot range there, Cook Inlet on over to Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay northwest 25 tomorrow, and lighter winds, as I mentioned here, developing across the Alaska Peninsula, just coming down to barely a breeze during the afternoon tomorrow. And then that will change on Wednesday here with gales back in to the Alaska Peninsula with freezing spray to heavy freezing spray in these areas. East 30 there, so it'll be too warm southwest of Sitkinak for any freezing spray. Northeast, almost a gale force for Bristol Bay. For the Aleutians, pretty light winds here across the eastern areas tomorrow, and then starting to see them pick up small craft advisories here over the central and western areas due to that storm system that's sliding eastward just south of the chain. And then we'll see it drop back around or swing back around to the west and come down here, but still hanging on to those northerlies there as that low center starts to push up to the northeast with gales back in across the eastern Aleutians and possible even storm force gusts there in the channeled zones. For the west coast, north to northwest, 20 knots. Still some brisk wind advisories for St. Lawrence Island, but coming down. All these winds trending down, becoming quite light there for the Pribilofs, and even lighter possibly Tuesday evening in these areas, and then starting to pick up in response to that next storm, but only across the southern or southeast bearing, 20 knots over at St. Paul. Otherwise, north to northwest, 15 to maybe 20 knots elsewhere. For the Arctic coast, northeast, 10 to 20 knots there, but still brisk wind advisories for the Chukchi Sea. Dropping back for a change now on Wednesday, northeast, quite light along the remainder of the stretch of the coast. And for tonight, this low center pulling up to Kodiak Island, the front moving inland and weakening, but still those wind advisories for the Alaska Range, but the winter storm warning for the peninsula will end. And for tomorrow, still wet, but not quite so windy over the southeast coast, snow here in the southwest, and there's the next storm. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.